The massive viewing chamber aboard the Galactic Council's primary station hummed with the low vibration of countless data streams. Council member Vexitari manipulated the holographic display with practiced ease, cycling through the endless catalog of monitored worlds. "Another century, another review," muttered his colleague Thais, her crystalline features reflecting the blue glow of the display. "How many dormant worlds are we tracking now?" 12,437, Vexitari replied, without looking up, his attention fixed on a small blue-green world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. "Including this one, designation Terra 3, locally called Earth." Thais leaned closer, studying the data streams. "I remember this one. Primitive bipeds, carbon-based. They showed early promise, developed basic nuclear technology, sent crude signals into space. That was, when? 3 centuries ago. 312 years, to be precise." Vexitari's fingers danced across the control interface, pulling up historical data. "We detected their first artificial satellites, monitored their radio transmissions. Standard pre-contact civilization markers. The xenobiologists were quite excited. Rare to find a species that developed so rapidly." The hologram shifted, showing archived footage of Earth's surface from centuries past. Sprawling cities, primitive aircraft, early space launches, all the hallmarks of a civilization on the cusp of joining the galactic community. Small rockets climbed slowly into the atmosphere, while radio waves carried simple messages across the planet's surface. Then they went silent, Thais observed, noting the data trend lines that all terminated abruptly. No more signals, no expansion beyond their home system. The monitoring buoys we placed at the edge of their system haven't detected so much as a probe in 200 years, Vexitari nodded grimly. Classic pattern. They either destroyed themselves, nuclear war, ecological collapse, the usual suspects, or they simply lacked the intellectual capacity to advance further. Some species hit a technological ceiling and never break through. The display showed empty space around Earth's solar system, not a single ship, probe, or artificial structure beyond the planet itself. The silence was complete and absolute. Their development curve was steeper than most. This mused, her analytical mind working through the data. Mathematical progression suggested they should have achieved faster than light travel within a century of their first space flights. The early signs were all there: rapid advancement, innovative problem-solving, strong survival instincts. Should have, but didn't. Vexitari's dismissive gesture closed Earth's file. The galaxy is full of species that showed early promise but failed to deliver. We can't waste Council resources monitoring every dead civilization. The data painted a clear picture. 3 centuries ago, Earth had been buzzing with activity. Radio signals, television broadcasts, and primitive internet communications had filled the electromagnetic spectrum around the planet. Their technology had advanced at an unprecedented rate. Then suddenly, everything stopped. "What do you think happened to them?" Thais asked, though she already knew the standard theories. "Same thing that happens to most aggressive species." Vexitari replied with the tired wisdom of someone who had witnessed this pattern hundreds of times. "They turned their weapons on themselves. Those nuclear bombs they developed? Perfect for ending a civilization. Quick, efficient, leaves the planet mostly intact for the next species to evolve." Across the chamber, senior analyst Keth Moore approached. Their station, his towering insectoid frame cast shadows across the holographic displays. The plates on his exoskeleton clicked softly as he moved, a sound that always reminded younger council members of their own mortality. Quarterly review. Complete, Keth Moore asked, his compound eyes reflecting the data streams. Just finished, Vexitari confirmed. 12 dormant worlds moved to inactive status, including that human world in Sector 7G. No signs of advancement or expansion. We're reallocating the monitoring resources to more promising civilizations. Keth Moore's compound eyes clicked as he accessed the files. Earth? Yes, I remember the early reports. Fascinating species, highly adaptable, rapid technological development, complex social structures. They showed remarkable ingenuity in their early space exploration attempts. Pity they couldn't sustain the momentum, this added. though something in her voice suggested lingering curiosity about the silent world. "Perhaps it's for the best," Vextari said, his tone carrying the weight of experience. They displayed unusually aggressive tendencies. Their historical records showed constant warfare, territorial disputes, resource conflicts. A species like that achieving interstellar capability could have been problematic for galactic stability. The three council members shared a moment of contemplative silence. The galaxy had seen its share of aggressive civilizations, and the conflicts that followed their expansion into council space were always costly. Wars that lasted centuries, entire star systems reduced to radioactive debris, species driven to extinction by their own violent nature or the violence of others. "File it under evolutionary dead end," Kethmore decided with administrative finality. "Redirect the monitoring buoys to the Kepler 442 system. We're detecting promising signals from the fourth planet there. Early radio transmissions, signs of organized civilization. Another species to watch grow up and hopefully not destroy itself," This muttered, already pulling up the new files. As the council members moved on to other matters, Earth's file was archived deep in the bureaucratic systems of galactic civilization. The small blue world continued its orbit around its unremarkable star, apparently forgotten by the vast community of intelligent species that surrounded it. In the depths of space, the monitoring buoys that had watched Earth for centuries received their new orders. Their sensors powered down, no longer scanning the quiet solar system for signs of life or technology. The ancient machines began their long journey to new assignments, leaving behind the world they had observed for so long. For the first time, in 300 years, humanity was truly alone with its secrets. The Watchers had stopped watching. The Galactic Council had made their decision. Earth was no longer worth their attention. They would soon discover how catastrophically wrong they were. Admiral Jiho stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the massive council station grow larger on the main display. After 3 centuries of careful observation, humanity was finally ready to announce its presence to the galaxy. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Soman announced from her position at the tactical station. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, their movements betraying none of the historic significance of this moment. "Signal from the Destiny, sir," Communications Officer Minho reported. "Captain Hyun confirms the stealth fields are holding steady. The council stations still haven't detected our approach." Jiho allowed himself a small smile. The irony wasn't lost on him. Humanity's first contact with galactic civilization would come as a complete surprise to the very beings who thought they had been watching Earth all along. The bridge around him was quiet, except for the soft hum of advanced technology. Every surface gleamed with materials that the council had never seen before. The displays showed information in ways that would have seemed impossible to the aliens who had dismissed humanity centuries ago. "Distance to the station?" Jiho asked, his voice calm despite the weight of the moment. 15,000 kilometers, and closing," Navigator Yuna replied from her station. "At this range we should be well within their sensor grids." "Should be," Soman emphasized with a slight grin. "But we're not even registering as a sensor ghost. The quantum masking technology is performing beyond specifications." Through the massive viewports, the council station dominated the view. It was truly impressive. A city-sized structure that housed representatives from dozens of species, all united under the banner of galactic cooperation. For 3 centuries, humanity had watched this station and thousands like it, learning every detail, cataloging every weakness, preparing for this exact moment. Jiho remembered the old stories from his grandmother, tales of when humanity first detected the alien monitoring devices in their solar system. The panic, the fear, the wild theories about invasion and conquest, but wiser minds had prevailed. Instead of announcing themselves or trying to destroy the alien technology, humanity had chosen to watch and learn. "The council chambers are in session," reported Intelligence Officer Tai Hyun. "Current debate involves resource allocation for the Andorian mining disputes. Same old politics." "Orders, Admiral?" Soman asked quietly, her finger hovering over the stealth field controls. Jiho took a deep breath, thinking of all the generations who had worked toward this moment. 300 years of secret development, of hidden shipyards built in the outer system, of technology advanced far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. 300 years of patience. "Drop the stealth fields," he commanded. "All ships full visibility. Let's say hello to the galaxy." The change was immediate and dramatic. Where empty space had existed moments before, a fleet of human vessels materialized as if conjured from the void itself. Sleek, elegant ships that bore no resemblance to the crude chemical rockets the Council had observed centuries ago. These vessels seemed to bend light around their hulls, their design incorporating principles of physics that the Council had yet to discover. The human fleet arranged itself in perfect formation around the Council station. Not threatening, but unmistakably powerful. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering that made the Council's most advanced vessels look like toys by comparison. Aboard the Council station, chaos erupted almost immediately. "Unknown contacts," shouted a Therilian sensor operator, his scaled, hands dancing frantically across his console. "Multiple vessels, massive energy signatures, how did they get so close without detection?" Station Commander Vextari, the same officer who had archived Earth's file decades earlier, rushed to the Central Command Center. The main display showed dozens of ships arranged in perfect formation, their design unlike anything in the Council's extensive databases. "Origin point?" he demanded, his voice cracking with stress. "Unknown, sir. They just appeared. No FTL signatures, no approach vectors detected. They're just there." Vextari's blood ran cold as he studied the tactical display. The unknown fleet hadn't adopted an aggressive posture, but their mere presence so close to the station represented a massive security failure. How had they penetrated the Council's most sophisticated detection networks? "Sir?" The communications officer interrupted, her voice shaking. "We're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. Audio and visual." "Put it through," Vexitari ordered, though his hands trembled as he spoke. The main display flickered, and Admiral Jiho's face appeared. His features were unmistakably human, the same species the Council had written off as extinct or primitive decades ago. But there was something in his eyes, an intelligence and confidence that made every Council member suddenly very uncomfortable. "Greetings. Galactic Council," Jiho began, his voice calm and measured despite the magnitude of the moment. "I am Admiral Jiho of the United Earth Space Command. We represent the human species of the world you designated as Terra 3. We've been watching you for quite some time." The command center fell into stunned silence. Vextari felt his secondary heart skip a beat as the impossible became reality. The humans were not only alive but had somehow developed technology that surpassed anything the Council possessed. "We know this comes as a surprise," Jiho continued with what might have been amusement in his voice. "Your records show that you stopped monitoring our system over 2 centuries ago, believing us to be either extinct or incapable of advancement. We chose not to correct that assumption." "Impossible," whispered Thys, who had joined Vexitari at the command station. "The humans were primitive. We saw their technology level, chemical rockets, basic electronics, simple radio communications. We come in peace," Admiral Jiho's transmission continued, "but we also come with questions. For 3 centuries we've observed your civilizations, your conflicts, your expansion across the galaxy. We've watched species rise and fall while you debated in your chambers. We've seen wars fought over resources that could be synthesized, territories claimed that could be shared." Jiho paused and his expression grew more serious. "We've learned much about galactic civilization, and frankly, we're not impressed." The admission hung in the air like a physical presence. Here was a species that the Council had dismissed, critiquing the very foundations of galactic society. Vextari finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "This is Station Commander Vextari of the Galactic Council. How are you here? Our sensors show your species never developed interstellar capability." Jiho's expression grew slightly amused, and when he spoke, there was a hint of gentle mockery in his voice. "Commander, your sensors showed you exactly what we wanted them to show. The diplomatic chamber aboard the council station had been hastily reconfigured to accommodate the unprecedented first contact scenario. Representatives from a dozen major species sat around the curved table, their various breathing apparatus and environmental suits creating a symphony of mechanical hums and hisses. Dr. Yunji entered the chamber with quiet confidence, her diplomatic credentials enhanced by degrees in xenobiology and theoretical physics. Behind her walked Chief Technology Officer Deho, carrying a simple metallic briefcase that had every council security scanner in the station on high alert. "The energy readings from that container are unlike anything we've cataloged," whispered Counselor Thys to her colleague. "Our sensors can't even determine what it's made of." Dr. Yunji took her position at the table, nodding politely to each representative. "Thank you for agreeing to these discussions. I'm Dr. Yunji, Earth's Chief Diplomatic Officer. This is Chief Technology Officer Deho. We appreciate your willingness to meet so quickly after our unexpected arrival." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a blade. Every alien representative sat rigid in their seats, studying the two humans with mixtures of fear, curiosity, and barely concealed hostility. These were beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, and now they found themselves face to face with a species they had written off as dead. Counselor Vexitari leaned forward, his compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lighting. "Dr. Yunji, we must address the obvious questions first. How did your species develop interstellar capability without our detection? Our monitoring systems are considered the most advanced in the galaxy." Dr. Yunji smiled politely, and there was something almost pitying in her expression. "With respect, Counselor, your monitoring systems are 3 centuries out of date. You based your assessment of human capability on technologies we abandoned before your first probe reached our system." The statement hit the assembled representatives like a physical blow. Technologies they abandoned. The implications were staggering. Deho placed the mysterious briefcase on the table and opened it with a soft click. Inside, nested in what appeared to be living metal, sat a simple sphere about the size of a human fist. It looked unremarkable, almost crude compared to the sophisticated technology surrounding them in the council chamber. "This is a basic manufacturing unit from our current technology base," Deho explained in perfect galactic standard language. "Would you like a demonstration?" Before anyone could object or even fully process what he meant, Deho touched the sphere with one finger. The device began to hum softly, a sound that seemed to resonate in frequencies that made several alien representatives uncomfortable. The air above the sphere began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Then something impossible happened. Within seconds, a perfect replica of the conference table materialized in the space above the original. Every detail was exact. The scratches on the surface, the grain patterns in the exotic wood, even the reflection patterns from the chamber's lighting. It was as if reality had been copied and pasted. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Several representatives activated their personal recording devices, trying desperately to capture readings of the impossible display before them. Others simply stared, their minds struggling to process what they were witnessing. "Molecular assembly," Dr. Yunji explained as casually as if she were discussing the weather. "We can rearrange matter at the atomic level, build anything we need, from the raw materials around us. This particular unit is considered obsolete by our current standards. We give them to children as educational toys." Counselor Kethmore, his insectoid frame trembling slightly, studied the fabricated table with instruments that extended from his suit. "This is impossible. The energy requirements alone would exceed the output of most stellar generators. The quantum calculations needed to manipulate matter at this level should require computers the size of moons. Only if you're using conventional energy sources and conventional computing," Deho replied with the patience of a teacher explaining basic concepts to slow students. He touched the sphere again, and both tables, the original and the copy, dissolved into thin air, their atoms dispersing harmlessly into the chamber's atmosphere. "We developed zero-point energy extraction about 2 centuries ago," he continued. "Every human device, from personal communicators to starships, taps directly into the quantum vacuum. Energy scarcity isn't a concept we deal with anymore. As For computing power, we discovered that reality itself can be used as a processing matrix if you know how to ask the right questions. Dr. Yunji activated a small device on her wrist, and suddenly the chamber filled with holographic displays showing the human fleet still positioned around the station. But these weren't just images. They were real-time tactical displays showing energy flows, structural compositions, and technical specifications that should have been impossible to obtain. Our ships don't use conventional faster-than-light drives either, she explained, gesturing at the displays. We manipulate space-time itself, creating localized distortions that allow us to step from one point to another without actually traveling the distance between them. Distance becomes irrelevant when you can fold space like origami. Space folding, breathed Counselor Zirin, her tentacles coiling with excitement and terror. We've theorized about such technology for millennia, but the mathematical challenges were considered insurmountable by our greatest minds. Challenging, yes, Dr. Yunji agreed with a slight nod, but not insurmountable. We had the advantage of approaching the problem from a different angle than your civilizations. While you focused on brute force solutions, bigger engines, more power, larger weapons, we focused on elegance and efficiency. We learned to work with the universe instead of against it. Deho produced another device from the briefcase. This, one resembling a crystal that seemed to contain swirling galaxies within its structure. This is a computational matrix. It contains the complete knowledge base of human civilization, including detailed scans of every council world, ship design, and technological specification we've observed over the past 3 centuries. The crystal projected a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy that filled the chamber. Thousands of data points marked council territories, trade routes, military installations, and classified research facilities. The level of detail was beyond staggering. It included information that should have been protected by the highest levels of council security. Impossible, Vextari whispered, his voice barely audible. How could you have gathered this intelligence without our knowledge? Some of this data comes from facilities that don't officially exist. Nanoprobes, Dr. Yunji replied with the same casual tone she might use to discuss lunch plans. Self-replicating, invisible to your sensors, capable of transmitting data across galactic distances instantaneously through quantum entanglement. We've had them embedded in every major council facility for over a century. They're probably in this room right now. The implications crashed over the assembled representatives like a tsunami. If humans had been capable of such comprehensive surveillance for so long, what else were they capable of? What other impossibilities were they hiding? The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of the human delegation's departure. Representatives from 47 member species filled the Great Chamber, their voices creating a cacophony of fear, anger, and desperate planning. Council Prime Zethkar, a being whose crystalline form had witnessed over 6 centuries of galactic politics, called for order. The situation is unprecedented. His voice resonated through the chamber's translation systems. A previously unknown civilization has demonstrated technological superiority beyond our comprehension, revealed comprehensive intelligence gathering throughout our territories, and claims knowledge of an approaching threat. In the human fleet, Captain Minseo monitored the Council's emergency session through their embedded surveillance network. She turned to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Jinwoo, who was reviewing tactical displays. They're debating whether to trust us or attack us, she reported, about what we expected. The Catherian delegation is pushing for immediate military action, Jinwoo noted, highlighting a section of the intercepted communications. They're arguing that humanity represents a greater threat than the alleged invasion fleet. Captain Minseo shook her head sadly. Fear made intelligent beings do stupid things, and the Council was proving that point perfectly. She could see the tactical displays showing Council battle groups moving into position around the human fleet. Dozens of warships representing the combined military might of galactic civilization, preparing for what they thought would be a decisive strike. Signal from Admiral Jiho, Communications Officer Kyung reported from her station. He wants to know if we should demonstrate our defensive capabilities now, or wait for them to actually attack. Let them make the first move, Captain Minseo decided. We want them to understand the futility of aggression, not think we're bullies. Back in the council chamber, the debate raged on. Councillor Vexitari stood at the central podium, his voice carrying the weight of his experience. We cannot ignore the threat these humans represent. They've been spying on us for centuries, infiltrating our most secure facilities. Their technology makes our greatest achievements look like primitive tools. How do we know this invasion fleet story isn't just a lie designed to make us surrender? Because, came a new voice from the chamber's entrance, you're about to see the proof with your own eyes. Every head turned toward the voice. Dr. Yunji walked calmly into the chamber, but something was wrong. The security forces moved to stop her, their energy weapons charging and restraint fields activating. But their weapons passed right through her as if she were made of light. Hard light projection, she explained with infuriating calm. I'm actually aboard our flagship, but I thought this conversation was too important to conduct through official channels. Her image flickered slightly as she moved to the center of the chamber, walking through solid matter like a ghost. This is a violation of council sovereignty, shouted Councillor Thies, her crystalline features blazing with anger. You have no right to enter our chambers uninvited. I have every right to protect my species and yours from total destruction, Dr. Yunji replied firmly. Your security systems couldn't stop a human child from accessing this chamber. That should tell you something about how pointless it would be to fight us. She gestured casually, and the chamber's main display activated without any authorization from council technicians. The massive screen showed deep space at the galaxy's edge, where something impossible was moving between the stars. The assembled representatives saw ships that defied comprehension. Each vessel was larger than the biggest space stations in council territory. They moved in perfect formation across light years of space, their dark hulls reflecting no light, like holes torn in reality itself. Long-range quantum sensors detected these vessels 18 hours ago, Dr. Yunji explained, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. They're larger than anything in your databases or ours. Energy signatures suggest technology at least 2 centuries ahead of even our current capabilities. The invasion fleet stretched across the display like a swarm of mechanical locusts. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands, each one capable of destroying entire star systems. The sight was so terrifying that several council members had to activate their emergency life support systems. This is impossible, whispered Councillor Kethmore, his insectoid frame shaking. No civilization could construct vessels of that size. The materials alone would require the resources of entire galaxies. No civilization in our galaxy, Dr. Yunji corrected grimly. We're dealing with beings from another galaxy entirely. Their technology, their motivations, their intentions, all unknown to us. But their trajectory is clear. They're heading directly for the galaxy's most populated regions. Prime Zethkar found his voice, though it came out cracked and weak. You said 50 years. These images suggest they're much closer than that. They are. Our initial calculations were based on conventional faster-than-light assumptions. These ships appear to be using technology similar to our own space-time manipulation, but on a scale that makes our achievements look like children's experiments. New estimates put their arrival at less than 5 years. The chamber erupted in panic. Species that had never agreed on anything suddenly found themselves united in terror. 5 years wasn't enough time to evacuate major population centers, let alone mount any kind of effective defense. At that moment, alarms began blaring throughout the council station. Captain Minseo's voice came through the chamber's communication systems, calm and professional despite the chaos. Dr. Yunji, we have a problem. The Catherian battle group is powering weapons and moving to attack position. Admiral Jiho has authorized a defensive demonstration. Dr. Yunji sighed like a teacher dealing with particularly stubborn students. Some people never learn from words alone. In space around the council station, the human fleet remained perfectly motionless as the Catherian ships approached. The alien vessels were impressive by galactic standards, massive dreadnoughts bristling with energy weapons that could crack planets. Their targeting systems locked onto the sleek human ships and their commanders prepared to fire. Then the Catherian ships simply stopped. Their engines died completely, weapons powered down to zero, and life support systems switched to emergency backup power. Within seconds, the entire battle group was drifting helplessly in space like expensive debris. Nanoprobe override, Dr. Yunji explained to the horrified council representatives. We've had control of your ship's critical systems for decades. The only reason your vessels still function is because we allow them to. We could have shut down every ship, every station, every piece of technology in council space centuries ago. The demonstration had its intended effect. The other battle groups that had been moving to attack positions immediately powered down their weapons and retreated to what they hoped were safe distances. We're not your enemies, Dr. Yunji continued, and for the first time, her voice carried genuine sadness. We could have conquered this galaxy centuries ago if that had been our goal. We could have eliminated your civilizations, claimed your worlds, enslaved your populations. Instead, we watched, we learned, and we prepared for the day when we might need to stand together. Her projection flickered as she looked directly at each council member in turn. That day has arrived. The question now is whether you'll work with us to face what's coming, or whether you'll let pride and fear doom every living being in the galaxy to extinction. 2 years had passed since the revelation that changed everything. The Galactic Defense Initiative operated from a massive space station constructed in the neutral zone between major council territories, its design incorporating the best of human engineering and galactic resources. Admiral Jiho stood in the command center, watching holographic displays that showed the frantic preparation efforts across hundreds of worlds. Beside him, Director Sun-hee coordinated the technological uplift programs that were revolutionizing galactic civilization. Progress report, Jiho requested, his eyes never leaving the streams of data flowing across the displays. Ahead of schedule, in most sectors, Sun-hee replied, manipulating the display to show production statistics. The Therilian manufacturing facilities are now producing nanoprobe defensive networks. The Zyran Collective has adapted our quantum communication systems to their biotechnology. Even the Kitherians have put aside their pride and accepted our shield generator designs. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Species that had spent millennia perfecting their own technologies were now rebuilding everything from scratch using human designs. Entire industrial complexes had been torn down and rebuilt. Centuries of scientific advancement had been discarded in favor of human innovations that made their old methods look primitive. And the fleet construction? Admiral Jiho asked, though he could see the answer in the tactical displays surrounding them. 63% complete. The hybrid vessels are exceeding all performance expectations. Council engineering expertise combined with human technology is proving more effective than we initially projected. Through the massive viewports, newly constructed warships moved in formation. These weren't purely human designs, but rather a fusion of human technology with alien aesthetics and engineering approaches. The result was ships that were both beautiful and deadly, incorporating the best ideas from dozens of different species. Chief Engineer Hajun approached the command station, his expression troubled. Despite the progress they were making, his face carried the weight of bad news. Admiral, we've received the latest intelligence from the deep space monitoring stations. The invasion fleet has accelerated again. The main display shifted to show the approaching armada. The alien ships had grown larger and more numerous since the last update. Their formation suggested a level of coordination and intelligence that made even the human commanders nervous. Time to arrival? Jiho asked, though he dreaded the answer. 14 months, Hajun replied grimly. They're using some form of space compression technology that's beyond even our understanding. They're literally making the distance between galaxies shorter. The news hit the command center like a physical blow. 14 months instead of the 5 years they had been planning for. It changed everything about their defensive preparations. Dr. Yunji entered the command center at that moment, having just returned from a diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim territories. Her face showed the strain of constant travel and negotiation, but her eyes still held the determination that had carried humanity through the crisis. The hegemony worlds have agreed to the evacuation protocols, she reported, but they're requesting human oversight for the civilian transports. They don't trust their own technology anymore. Can't blame them, Director Sun-hee observed with a bitter laugh. We've had to completely rebuild their life support systems 3 times. Their original designs were death traps waiting to happen. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. For centuries, the galactic civilizations had considered themselves advanced, sophisticated, the pinnacle of intelligent development. Now they were learning that their technology was barely adequate for basic survival, let alone warfare against an intergalactic threat. "Admiral," came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. Prime Zethkar is requesting immediate conference." The holographic display activated, showing the Council's current meeting chamber. The assembled representatives looked exhausted. Their various physiologies showed stress in ways that human observers had learned to recognize over the past 2 years. "Admiral Jiho," Prime Zethkar began, his crystalline form flickering with patterns that indicated extreme fatigue. "We need to discuss the latest intelligence reports. Our xenobiology teams have analyzed the data from the deep space probes." "What did they find?" Jiho asked, though his tone suggested he already expected more bad news. "The invasion fleet isn't just ships," Counselor Thys replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're moving entire worlds, artificial planets, each one larger than our biggest space stations. Population estimates suggest billions of beings aboard those vessels." "An entire civilization on the move," added Counselor Vexitari, his compound eyes reflecting the horror of the discovery. "This isn't an invasion in the traditional sense. It's a migration. They're not coming to conquer our galaxy. They're coming to replace us entirely." Admiral Jiho exchanged glances with his senior staff. This revelation changed everything about their defensive strategies. How do you fight an entire civilization that has nowhere else to go? "Do we have any data on their motivations?" Director Sun He asked. "Limited," Prime Zethkar replied. "But the quantum signature analysis suggests they're fleeing something. Their home galaxy shows signs of massive gravitational disturbances. They may be refugees from some cosmic disaster. Refugees who bring technology that could wipe us out without effort," Dr. Yunji observed. "The distinction may not matter much if they decide our galaxy belongs to them by right of superior capability." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just facing an invasion. They were facing the arrival of an entire civilization with nowhere else to go and the power to take whatever they wanted. "What are our options?" Counselor Kethmore asked from the transmission. Admiral Jiho studied the tactical displays, his mind racing through possibilities that all seemed equally desperate. "We continue the defensive preparations, but we also need to consider diplomatic options. If they're refugees, they might be open to negotiation, sharing the galaxy rather than conquering it." "And if they're not interested in sharing?" Vextari asked. "Then we fight," Jiho replied simply. "But we fight as one galaxy, united under a single command structure. The old council system of endless debate and committee decisions won't work against this threat." Prime Zethkar's form flickered with what humans had learned to recognize as reluctant acceptance. "You're proposing martial law, a military dictatorship over the entire galaxy." "I'm proposing survival," Jiho corrected. "The galaxy has 14 months to prepare for the arrival of beings who make our most advanced civilizations look like children, playing with toys. We can't afford political delays or territorial disputes." "You're asking us to surrender our sovereignty to humanity," Thissy said. "I'm asking you to surrender your sovereignty to a unified galactic defense force that happens to be led by the only species with technology capable of standing against this threat," Jiho replied. "The alternative is extinction." The vote, when it came, was unanimous. Fear had a way of making even the most complex decisions simple. As the council representatives signed the articles of galactic martial law, Admiral Jiho looked out at the stars. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, an entire civilization was racing toward them, with technology that defied understanding and motivations that remained a mystery. Humanity had spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment, watching and learning in silence. Now they would discover if their patience and planning had been enough to save not just themselves, but every living being in the galaxy. The quiet watchers from Earth were quiet no more. They had become the shepherds of galactic civilization, and the greatest test in the history of intelligent life was about to begin.